Hello everyone, hope you're all doing well. I'm glad it's Friday, thank God it's here. I'm going to be doing today a bit of I suppose, a breakdown of the new armor changes that have come about in the recent patch, because it's probably the most important or the most disruptive patch in recent memory with regards to the changes to armor. So I'll go into that for now, and after I go into the changes, I will show my current Clan Wars builds, at least two or three out of the three. So my current Clan Wars lineup is a Scorpion Hover, a Gremlin Omnidog, and a Master Omnidog. So I will show the Gremlin and the Master Dog, show you how to build that, because they've been updated for the recent patch. I can't show the Scorpion Hover because I got off Echo and it's not my build. So I'll go into the armor changes first, and then I'll show the builds off and talk about them. But the biggest change in this recent patch to armor in general has been the changes to spaced armor. So for those who may not be aware or didn't quite understand the old way spaced armor would work, is that you would essentially have a 7 square sort of rule, essentially. So what would happen is once a projectile hit an object or hit a piece of armor, it would survive afterwards for 7 squares, or it would just impact and explode on that piece. So say for a scorpion, for example, it would hit this piece by here and then survive for 7 squares after the point of impact. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. This led to shoot-through pieces essentially not being used as they were intended to be. Obviously, a gun mount is meant to mount a gun on, and the idea was that you would have a piece of armor that may survive being destroyed, but then would let the damage through and impact other pieces, so you could use it as a gun mount. But because of this old rule of 7 squares, it would just act as very tanky armor as long as you spaced it out. So you would need, because it has 90% shoot through, basically means that you would need to put in 10 times the damage of the health of the piece in order to destroy it. So this gun mount that has 38 durability, you would need to pour 380 damage into it for it to essentially die. And you can't essentially hit the cabin until you've killed this gun mount. So back in the old days, a Scorpion would shoot this piece, and it would take up 2 entire Scorpion shots. That means that one from each gun, one salvo of scopes, and it wouldn't hit the cabin at all. One Scorpion shot wouldn't from 2 guns, and this was obviously blatantly overpowered because the armor wasn't being used, or well, the gun mounts or the shoot-throughs weren't being used as intended, and it would mean that pieces like this, so say this has 380 durability, these have 290 durability, that's 960 effective health for the cabin from 100 kilograms worth of stuff, or 110 kilograms, which is obviously insane. Which led to light builds like hovers and light hovers, like Kami Punny hovers, and even builds like this being far, far tankier than they should have been. So that was the old system. What's been changed in the current patch is that certain weapons will have a penetration sort of mechanic, I guess. So that's a sort of one of the confusing things about the new patch, is that certain weapons completely ignore spaced armor, other weapons ignore it to an extent, and other weapons do not ignore it at all, and it acts the old way. Everyone, just before I properly get into this video, I just wanted to say thanks for watching, and apologies if I tend to ramble or if my voice is going a bit. It's just when I record these things, I'm not used to talking too much. I'm not particularly good at it either, so apologies if I tend not to make much sense or ramble a bit, but it is late and yeah, I'm tired as shit. So yeah, thanks for watching. This little example just to show everyone, or show you all, how spaced armor is currently working. So we'll go through the builds, or sorry, the weapons that completely ignore spaced armor first. So you can find these by looking for a penetration ability like marker. So if we go on worlds, for example, so we'll ignore the percentages for now because that explains into something different. But if they have this little icon, penetration ability, even if they have 1%, don't matter, then they completely ignore spaced armor in every regard. So if we find something like a Reaper, which has penetration ability icon, it's 80%, but ignore the number for now. So going to Exib, one Reaper, and we'll shoot at my little build by here. As you can see, it's doing carb damage, and it doesn't give a shit about the spaced armor. It's going straight through. Now, even a weapon with the low percentage, so what's the lowest? I think it's the Avalanche, yeah. So the Avalanche has a penetration ability icon, but it's only 40%, but it doesn't matter. So I'll just give an example. As you can see, or as you will see, the big old shell goes straight through and kills Carb. So, like I said, if it has that icon, it goes straight through. Probably the biggest perpetrator of this, or the most meta thing you'll see with this at the minute, is Scorpions. Scorpions don't actually say that they do, but they do because they've been reworked. Essentially, Scorpions now will keep on going until the full damage of the weapon has been used up. So the 530 damage, doesn't matter if it's 1 pieces or 100, it will keep on going until that 530 has been used, essentially. So if we just to show, Scorpions will completely ignore this as well. Now back in the day, before this current patch, this would essentially be like 290, that'd be over 1,000 dura right there, that's over 1,000. This would be like maybe 2,500 effective health for the carbon. Just give you an extreme example from just these 7 pieces, which is why they were so meta and why light builds were so much tankier, so much more tankier than they should have been. So this has led to spaced armor not being as viable as it used to be, obviously, because it used to just be a blanket buff for any build. But it still can be applicable. So we're going to weapons now that ignore spaced armor to an extent. So that would be anything that is essentially Hitscan, I believe, that doesn't have a penetration icon. So machine guns and shotguns are the 2 biggest things for this. So things like Punishers and Breakers, they used to be, like I said, the 7 square golden rule. Now this has been upped to a 10 square golden rule. So as you can see, there's no penetration marker. But what it means is that if the spaced armor is 10 squares away from what you are trying to protect, then it will act as it used to. So as we can see, we'll get rid of these 4 pieces. So we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if a punny is shooting at these pieces here, or breaker, shooting at these pieces here, then it will act as it used to act in the old patch. In effect, you will need 390 dura to 380 dura to destroy all of these 3 pieces. And because of the 10 square rule, it means that the bullet will go through and stop just before it hits the carbon. So I will show this now. Luckily, Punisher is the first thing on exit. So yeah, you'll do. Okay, maybe not. This is actually a good test because I can show the Punisher and the Typhoon. Right, so Punisher's first, as we will show. This is I am shooting and it's getting absorbed by the spaced armor, and the bullet is not traveling through to the cabin, and I will need to pour 380 damage, or 380 worth of damage before the piece falls off. But if I shoot it with a Typhoon now, which does have the penetration icon, goes straight through the spaced armor and hits the cab. Thank you whoever built that build. That was actually very nice for me to do a showcase on. So this 10 square rule, this is actually really good to have on builds. So you still want a layer. I would say in the current meta, it's really good to have a layer of spaced armor 10 squares away from your guns or your cabin, if you can. Because in the event it does get shot by a breaker or a punisher, which are pretty, you see them quite a bit, it will act as very good armor. But obviously if it gets shot by a Typhoon or a Scorpion or a Mastodon or anything with the penetration icon, it's not going to do anything at all. And And then we have builds, or sorry, then we have weapons. I always see builds that completely do not get affected. Oh no, sorry, get completely countered by spaced armor like they did in the old patch. So that would be anything with just essentially pure HE weapons. So if we look at auto cannons like still winds, these are explosive damage. As you can see, there's no bullet damage on these, just explosive, and there's no pen. So if you were to shoot spaced armor with just still winds, I'm sure I have still winds. Oh, no, that's wolves. There we go. This will essentially act as it did back in the old days. This didn't get a buff at all. So as you can see, it's like massive dribble. I mean, the pieces are still taking damage because the explosive damage. So if I hit this piece, it's going to hit the two other pieces. But as you can see, the spaced armor is acting brilliantly against explosive damage. So that's another reason why you would still want spaced armor, sorry, shoot through armor on your builds these days, is because if you get hit by something that's pure HE, it's gonna help quite a bit. Not that still winds are particularly common in Clan Wars or anything with pure HE. The only thing that really has pure HE that you'll see in Clan Wars would be still winds, maybe an odd retcher, but that's practically it that I can think of, to be honest. But I'm just saying, pure HE weapons, they still get completely countered by spaced armor. So yeah, that's spaced armor talked about. So this is sort of meant that your current build. The current build did need a rework, but they didn't need a huge amount of rework. As you can see, this is my current Master Dog. This is very similar to the old Master Dog. But it was just the spaced armor was moved forward to 10 squares as opposed to 7. And now it's just got a bit more armor. And that's pretty much it, actually, to be honest. You kind of see a meta where builds are very compact now and very they're very compact, where you have like bumpers next to armor. I don't really think that's particularly great. I feel like you still need to space armor out a bit, because if you did find a build that was like very compact, for example, that would help a lot against bullet damage. But once that bullet damage has been exceeded and something explodes, so say if I shot a very compact build with the Mastodon, the bullet damage will get eaten up. But once that thing explodes, that explosion radius is going to hit a lot of pieces. So I still think it's beneficial to space the armor out, or have armor spaced out a little bit, but not as outrageous as it used to be in the past. So yeah, that's basically it. Oh yes, I should point out that because of I'll talk about the rework the Scorpions next, actually, before I go into my Clan Wars build, because that's a big point of contention, and that it's sort of a buff, but in other situations it's actually quite. It also feels like a bit of a nerf, actually, and I'll talk about that now. Right, next I wanted to talk about the explosive percentage ability. So for any weapon that deals hit damage and explosive damage, like a cannon, for example, it will have a percentage next to its penetration. And basically what that means is that, take a Mastodon, for example. The Mastodon does slightly more explosive damage than it does hit damage, as we can see above. And what the 80% means is that once 80% of the projectile's bullet damage, or hit damage, sorry, has been reached or exceeded, then the projectile will explode. Right? So if we go on to the ball, so the Mastodon deals 350 hit damage and 430 explosive damage. So once 80% of my 350 hit damage has been reached, so that's about, what, 300 Dura, roughly, then the Mastodon projectiles will explode, dealing the explosive damage, which is, very good. That's basically this piece, that's basically probably this entire chunk by here. The bullet damage would destroy all of these, then it would explode probably around after this piece, for example. Which means that Mastodons are far better than they used to be, and they hit like absolute fucking trucks now. Like, they're very, very good. This Mastodon dog, for example, pretty sure I wouldn't mind 1v1 in it in any scenario. There's very few builds that would counter this. Even something that should hard counter it, like a Firebug, you can actually take if you play it right, because if you shot center mass on a Firebug, you would deal so much damage. 2 or 3 shots into the center mass of a Firebug will probably kill it these days, and you can one-shot flashes if you hit them in the right spot, and it's just very, very good Mastodons at the moment. So that's basically what this penetration percentage means. So let's have a look at avalanches actually. So avalanches, how much bullet damage does an avalanche do? Avalanche does what? Okay. How does an avalanche, which is a 380 cent, no, yeah, I don't know. It's like a 38 centimeter fucking mortar have more bullet damage than it does explosive. That's dumb, to be honest. Anyway, here we look at the board, the ball, sorry. That seems kind of bugged. Anyway, this is like a 40% explosion thing after 500 damage. So you're looking about 200 Dura worth of pieces, and then the part will explode. Even though you expect it to have much more explosive damage than that. That's quite pathetic, actually. Yeah, so avalanches still aren't great, but as you can see, the explosion radius is fantastic, but they still need a buff. But they're still better than they used to be because of this mechanic. So yeah, that's that covered. And now I'm going to show off my my Clan Wars build, starting with the Masto Dog, because I think Masto Dogs are fantastic at the minute, and they are. I saw a couple of Mastodon dogs in Clan Wars I went up against that were let's just say suboptimal builds. They could be improved quite a bit, and I think this thing is fantastic. So talk about this next. I'll talk about it first, and then I'll show a build video. So firstly, it's a Hadron fused for mass and power. It has 5 Omni wheels, which is actually the optimal amount of Omni wheels in my opinion, because you get a nice balance of power, but you also get a good amount of traction. I think I've said that before. And Omni builds live or die by their power. Basically, a good rule is by the kg. You don't want the power or the acceleration bar to be under the, obviously being behind the G, essentially. So this is just enough power, I would say, to make it applicable. Otherwise, you're just going to be too slow, and if a guy gets on your side, you're screwed. But anything with this amount of power or more is perfect because it is surprisingly maneuverable. You have obviously the armor mori in between the mastos, which since the armor changes, as I've described, is actually better than it used to be, much better. And you have the Hadron for reload, so this is just absolutely amazing in my opinion. You have the Omnis next to the generator at the back. They're kind of tucked in a way and quite hard to shoot off. As you can see, down by here, protecting the camera from underneath. Put the verifier over there because it just acts like Dura for weapons. I did have my reload module there, but that's actually a bad idea because they would get taken off early, and then obviously you've got 20% less reload for the rest of the match, which isn't great. But if someone shoots your verifier off at the start, it doesn't really matter. To be honest, verifiers are meant to be hit at the start when a bug comes in, and you barely use it after that. What else? The ammo packs are surprising. I have only 2 blue ammo packs on this thing, which gives you 20 shells. Doesn't sound like a lot, but these ammo packs almost never get shot off because they're so small. And 20 shells of a Mastodon dog will be plenty, to be honest. Because it's a dog. If you're on a dog team and you're pushing, you probably use up like 5 or 6 shells in the entire round. No joke. Especially if you're on a full dog team. And yeah, if you're on a very long round, you might use 15 maybe. But I have yet to have it screw me over. Also because my Mastodons aren't fused for minus mass, but yeah, that's probably the main reason why I'm doing it. But yeah, you could put purple armor packs here, and it's no big issue. So yeah, you get great amount of power, you get great amount of reload because of the Hadron, obviously. Great amount of Dura because of the armor Mori, and there's a decent amount of armor all around. Anything else? It's got a layer of spaced armor 10 squares away from the guns. So obviously you can't do the barrels because like if it's 10 squares away from the barrels, it'd be freaking by here. But if we took, say the gun is most likely to get hit past this square, so we got 1, 2, 3 hard to count squares in this new grey. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if a punny or breaker is shooting at these pieces here, it's going to act in the same way as old. That's very good armor. I like these bumpers at the front. I prefer these for shooting dogs. I think these are better because basically with buggy bumpers, you don't wedge him, but he doesn't wedge you. So that's really nice. So you kind of like bounce off the guy and then you can continue doing your shooting. If you want to wedge a guy, then run the shock absorbers because these are the best for wedging that I've seen anyway. What else? Anything else that I want to talk about with this build? No, not really. Armor Mori is attached to the guns and the cab. Go cheetah. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Right, I will show now a bit of a higher run through on how to build it. Gremlin next. My current Gremlin is on a Kami, as opposed to a Catalina. I prefer the Kami at the moment just because of the sheer amount of firebugs that you go up against. Same setup as the last one with 5 wheels. The engine's still Golden Eagle because it gives us a 100 kilometer hour top speed. You get a spaced armored layer, same as with the Mastodons, at 10 squares. It might not look like it, but the hitbox of the Gremlin doesn't actually start until that square there. So yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 1, 2. Can I count? And build. Since this game, I changed the cleaner to a Kami because of the amount of firebugs that are going at the moment. The setup with the 5 wheels is pretty much the same. You get a Golden Eagle because you're at 100 kilometers an hour top speed, and the power is fantastic. It has a layer of spaced armor at 10 squares. So as we can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The hitbox of the Gremlin doesn't actually start until this square here. So as we can see, if we cover here, the Gremlin doesn't get highlighted, so the hitbox doesn't start here. The hitbox starts here. So if we count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if a Punisher or a Breaker, for example, so you have a Breaker or Punny Hover, and they're shooting down on your build, they're going to need to go through 200 Dura as any build would, but then these two pieces, because they're 10 squares away, they are going to act as, from this angle, are going to act as your spaced armor, essentially 160 Dura each, and then you got a bumper, which is another 160 Dura, so it's a bit more protection from the roof. Same with here, these squares are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and you don't hit the hitbox, so they're about 1,000 Dura from punnies and breakers on the side, and yes, pretty good. The what else? Omamori is attached to all of the guns and the cabin. The Jenny is mounted sideways because it kind of helps the wheels protect as much of the hitbox as possible. This piece at the back, this isn't to protect the cab, this is to give a 10 square distance to the guns. So if a punny or breaker shoot me in the back, it's not going to hit my gun, so at least not until it shoots that piece off. But to be honest, I don't mind them shooting at my car because with the new armor changes, this thing has, even a Kami, which is lightweight, has 2,400 Dura. So this can actually, with the Omamori, I don't mind Punisher shooting me in the back as much with this thing. Don't want to keep me forever, but it doesn't really matter. This build, Gremlins at the moment are still very good for pushing. This is a very good push build in my opinion. If as long as you're not going up against quad firebugs, this thing is completely fine. Against quad firebugs, it's a bit tricky because you need to kind of keep your distance and play offish, but then the firebugs will just jump your teammates and leave you for lost. Because you can't really jump in and commit, like charge into a bug when he has 3 firebug teammates because you'll probably get hit inside yourself, which isn't great. But besides, unless you're not going up against quad bugs, then this is fine. I don't mind this at all. Same thing with the bumpers. They're designed to just keep them away from you. What else? Oh yeah, Gremlins might have got changed. They have 40% shoot through now. I thought it used to be 50%, but I'm not sure. So someone correct me on that one if you can. But it doesn't really matter actually, because if you have a Gremlin which is 180 Dura on an Omamori, that essentially gives it 360 Dura. If it lets 40% of the damage through, means it takes 60% of the damage. That means you still need 600 Dura base to one-shot a Gremlin, any one Gremlin build. So if you shot this with this one Gremlin here with 600 Dura worth of damage, it would die. But Typhoons and Scorpions don't have 600 Dura damage, I don't believe. I mean, a Scorpion is 532. What's a Typhoon? Typhoon, where you at? I want to say Typhoon's like 580, 590, isn't it? Did I get a buff? So look. Are these fused? Oh, good. A Typhoon does 160, 250. Oh, okay, so it does. Huh? I thought it did more than that. No way. Let me shoot you with 2. I thought the Typhoon got a buff. Oh, I guess not. No, Typhoon's still 510. Okay. Yeah, you're definitely not one-shotting over Typhoon or Scorp, so it's still fine. If you shot with a Master, I would, but yeah, it's a Master at the end of the day. So that's still pretty cool. And yeah, they are still very, very good, in my opinion. Pretty meta, I would say. As long as you push in, they're good as gold. And yeah, now I will just do a quick, build through thing.